Shalom. Yahweh Shem Yahshua Barakatah. Yahweh Shema Atam Shem Yahushai. This is Isupk. Started out at 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York in 1969. We are under commanding General Yohanan, here to teach the truth of the Bible for so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indians that they are the real Israelites according to the scriptures. Today is Friday, so of course we got Friday's Lashawan Kodash class, or Ancient Hebrew class, also known as the Holy Tongue. All right. We've been going into some pretty interesting things over the past few weeks with the ancient Hebrew class. More specifically, the flying rolls, the chariots, breaking those things down in the ancient Hebrew, getting the scripture breakdowns, getting the vocabulary. Now, I just want to make sure to remind y'all a couple things. Hebrew on the right side, we're going to be using this column right here for this class predominantly. And then this Hebrew on the right, which lines right up with the ancient Hebrew, is going to be the Hebrew that we see when we go into the Sabbath service later tonight. Now, of course, you have your prepositions and possessive adjectives here to help give you a better understanding of how these phrases get put together. But as you see, what I've been doing is I've been basically putting an outline around the root words, like Amar is the word said, right? And then I even put the Strong's definition, identification number right here next to some of these words so that we can have a reference point so that we can always go and prove that this is in fact what is actually being said. And this is, of course, all lined right up with the ancient Hebrew language. Why is this important? Let me show you something. Something that just came out today. I was getting some wine for our cyber service class at the store, and this popped up. You understand? This popped up right next to me in line when I was about to check out. And that means that hundreds of people go through that line and see things like this. But what is this exactly? This says Dead Sea Scrolls. But if you take a closer look at it, there's ancient Hebrew. This Hebrew right here that's being put in front of people's faces all throughout the city and possibly all throughout the country. If this National Geographic page is, something that's been, widespread since this is the new issue. So the National Geographic, of course, goes all over the world, right? So they have this all over the place. And as you see right here, I don't know if I can get a good image of that. You even see YHWH there in that magnifying glass. I don't know if I can get it to focus. Slovakia. Hold up. But what's going on is they're putting the ancient Hebrew right in front of your face. And then this brochure or this National Geographic, I had to grab it because I wanted to see what it is that they had to say about it. And of course, something like this, there's usually more questions than answers that are provided, right? But it just goes to show that this language is very important, very crucially important, because they're taking artifacts from what they call the Dead Sea Scrolls. We know that it's just part of the scriptures, right? That's translated from the ancient Hebrew and then some Greek and Latin and other things like that. As you go from the Old Testament to the New Testament, the translation of languages start to change, right? Because the New Testament was written in Greek and in Latin. But the ancient Hebrew is predominantly what you see that makes up the Old Testament and the Apocrypha, which is where the Dead Sea Scrolls is a part of getting that information back to the forefront. So the interesting thing is the Israeli state spends millions and millions of dollars in laboratories, and they use AI to decipher the languages and understand the things that are being said in it. And you know what's crazy? We're offering this for free to you right here in this class. We just saw a National Geographic article or issue that's being put out for the public to see and the public to purchase and the public to read and question. And the thing is, we know who wrote it. We know it was so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indians when we were on that side of the globe that wrote those things. You understand? So there's no hesitation in our minds as to who we are according to the scriptures, but they're going to try to put things like that out there as a smear campaign to try to reiterate the false ideas that they are the real Israelites, and that is not true. Simply not true. Okay? And that's why their whole entire language is different. Their mannerisms are different. Everything about them is so different compared to what you actually read about in these scriptures. You understand? And so when we go back into the ancient Hebrew, this belongs to you. and you have to take it back. Part of taking it back is having the zeal to study it, to learn it, to understand it better than their scholars, better than their scientists, better than their AI technology can ever do. You know why? And you know how we know that we're succeeding in it? Because we actually follow it. Because we actually manifest it in real life, because we're the ones that are doing the Sabbath as according to the scriptures. We're the ones that are keeping the high holy days and the feast days according to the scriptures. We bring that book to life, not them. They're over there on our land, parting our land and trying to rediscover a history that does not belong to them. So I thought that was interesting. I wanted to bring that up. But today, what we're going to talk about, of course, knowing that our curriculum is every last Friday, we go into a little bit more advanced things like reading scriptures, breaking scriptures down, right? Breaking entire precepts down. We got a little taste of that last class when we read Zechariah chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Now, what we have right here is verse 2, because we had that written, we finished that off last class. So we're going to continue on at verse 2. And then what I wanted to get to today is verse 3, because verse 3 starts to go into some very important definitions for certain words and important phrases. All right. I'm going to leave this on the board here for a second for y'all to see. And let me refocus the camera because it seems to be a little bit out of whack. Give me 1 second. Now, bear with me 1 second. Let me fix this camera quick. Boom, there we go. That should be too wild. Let me leave that on the board here for a second. Again, what we're reading right here is the ancient Hebrew, Zechariah chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. This is particularly verse 2. And it says, Waya Amar, Aliyah, Maha, Ata, Ra'ah, Wa Amar, Anya, Ra'ah, Magalah, Ipa, Ipa, Araka, Asharayam, Ba'amar, Ba'amah, Warakaba, Ashar, Ba'amah. So Ba'amah is again an order of measurement that they used back then, where they were measuring the size of the flying roll that was in the air that the angel showed to, or that presented in front of Zechariah, and he was asking the angel that he was speaking with about what it was. That was the description of it, and this is how he recorded it in a language that is specific to a certain people for a specific time for them to learn. So it just goes to show how important it is for us to relearn our language. I'm gonna leave this on the board here for a minute. We're gonna read that scripture one more time here in a second, but I just want to make sure to give everybody a chance to filter in. Go ahead and check in and do everything in that respect. And then we're going to move forward here in a second, verse 3. 1 second. Go ahead and make sure to share the class too. We want to get this out there so that people can see this. It's important for us to have. Man. We got to get back to this Hebrew. We got to start talking about this like as if we trying to get fluent with it again. You know what I'm saying? After all these generations of not knowing who we are, not having our language, and not being in our land, it's going to come down to the point where we're going to have our language. And eventually, the Most High is going to put us back in our land. So why not get a head start on those things to be ahead of the curve? You understand what I'm saying? Give me 1 second here, then we'll go ahead and share the class for everybody. I'm gonna give y'all 1 moment to make sure if you don't have the chance to write what's on the screen, go ahead and do so. And if you need a little more time, make sure to post it in the chat so I don't move on, you know what I'm saying, while you're in the middle of trying to write it down. I'll give it 1 moment here. One more second here. Shit. We'll give it one more minute. One more second here. All right, there it is. All right, and again, Zechariah chapter 5, verse 2, it says, in English, it says, and he said unto me, what seest thou? And I answered, I see a flying roll. The length thereof is 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 10 cubits. So again, he's seeing something in the air that he would consider a flying roll. In the ancient Hebrew, when we go to the word roll, it's magalah, which is scroll, H4039. The word scroll is what's used right here. And if you look at a scroll looks like a cylindrical shape that goes across like this. We've seen scriptures like that refer to things like that, such as in the book of Exodus, or I believe it's either the book of Exodus or Leviticus, where that pillar of fire was there with Israel day, or a pillar of fire was there with Israel at the nighttime to guide them during the night. We're seeing right here the dimensions is being mentioned, where it's saying that the length is 20 cubits and the breadth could also mean height in this case, or width, if you're looking at it from a certain perspective. So it's basically 20 by 10. You understand? So imagine a scroll shape, something that's like an oval, something that's like a cylinder shape that's in the air, because he's saying it's flying in the air. We know back then there were no airplanes back then. There were no mechanical things back then that were flying. We had the Most High's army in the air. And it's going to explain that in the scripture as we go ahead and break it down in the ancient Hebrew. When we get to verse 3, it tells you what it is even more specifically. First, we get a visual description of this thing that's in the air. And then it's going to be explained by an angel that spoke with Zechariah as to what it is. So that's what we're going to do today. Again, let's read that in Hebrew before we move forward. Okay. So he said, Waya Amar being the word said. Alaya, so Alya, Maha, Ata, we know Ata means you, right? Ra'ah means to see. Wa Amar can mean to say, to answer, to reply, to exclaim, you know what I'm saying, to express. Anya, which is the word for I. And then it says, Ra'ah Magalah, there's that word scroll right there. A scroll flying. Magalah, Ata, Arata, Asharayam, Asharayam. Yeah, Asharayam means 20. Okay. Wa Rakaba. Okay. Ashara. And then finally, Ba'amah, which means cubits. So we just read that in Hebrew. Okay. We broke down the entire scripture there. And today what we're going to do is we're going to focus mostly on verse 3 today. All right. Because verse 3 it's a pretty long precept. So I want to try to make sure I got some room here to put everything. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get some room going here. And then we're going to break down verse 3. We'll probably just do it piece by piece. That way we can try to make sure we got plenty of room for the whole thing. So the first thing that you see, now, of course, what you want to do to follow along with us in the Hebrew to see how it is that I translated to the Lashon Kodash is first you want to use the Bible Hub app. Okay, the Bible Hub app is important. The Bible Hub app is what we use when we do the Sabbath service, where, of course, we could read in Hebrew the Old Testament. All right, so we're going to go to Zechariah. It's after Haggai. If you go to chapter 5 and verse 3. We're about to get that right now. So here we go. We start off with pretty much the same thing that the previous verse started off with. It says, Waya Amar. Wa ya Amar. Now we know that the root word here is Amar. We see that all the time. Amar means to say. We just read that. It says, Waya Amar. And he said. And he said, we won't get the Strong's concordant words just yet. Waya Amar. And then after that it says, Aliyah. Okay, it says, oh snap. I'm going to use the red one. I think the red one is a better visual. Check the black one here. Yeah, that might be easier to see. Oh, yeah. And he said to me, that's what he's saying. Yeah. To me. The next word that you see, again, you want to follow along with us so that you can actually see how I'm translating it. Because once you learn this Hebrew here, you got to learn this Hebrew also so that you can easily go back and forth between the Hebrew. Just like how we just saw in that National Geographic book. I'm going to show you one more time. Just tune in. This National Geographic book was in the store just now that I was at. And it's talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls. But more importantly, if you look close, that's not just Hebrew, that's ancient Hebrew that it's showing in front of people's faces right now at your local store. It's this Hebrew. I'm not talking about that, the bastardized Hebrew, the ancient Hebrew, because the artifacts that they're finding right now over there in what they call the Dead Sea is actually the language that we've been teaching in this class. And it's crazy because these artifacts they keep finding is only further proving that this is the real Hebrew. This is the actual Hebrew. So this is why we have to learn it, because it is the most accurate Hebrew to understand what is being said in the scriptures. So when we go and we read the Strong's definitions, that's one thing, right? To get the interlinear version and get used to seeing these characters, because we want to be able to go from here to here, or from here to here, from Old to Assyrian Hebrew, or from Assyrian to Ancient Hebrew. We have to be able to do that on the fly so that we can, of course, understand what's being said. And as we continue to have more and more of an understanding of the vocabulary, heck, it's going to get to the point where we can pull up them pictures that they're having of these scrolls, and we'll be able to understand what it's saying without us even having to be over there. That's the idea with this. All right, so the next phrase is zata. It says za I think it's actually. Let me get most of this stuff here. So the first part of this precept is, and he said to me, this is the oath. This, think about what we said right here. This is the oath. That's crazy. You know why that's crazy? Because when we read it in English, it says, this is the curse that goeth out over the face of the earth. We understand that a chariot can be a curse when you are the one that is being attacked by it. You understand? But what this scripture is saying, this word ha'alah right here is oath, which is H423. And if I click on that, it's going to give me the definition oath, meaning adjuration or oath. So it also translates very similarly, curse, but we know what an oath is, right? An oath is a promise. An oath is a surety. Okay. So this is what it is. A chariot is a sure thing. The scripture calls it a curse, but the ancient Hebrew, the word that's being used is more likely to be associated with the word that means oath. When you come into the school, you take an oath when you become a priest. When you take that anointment, you get your name, you get your rank. You understand? You've been studying, you've been making sure that your life is going to be dedicated to fulfilling the words of the Most High, studying them and understanding them and bringing them to your people so that they can understand. This oath has its own purpose. We just read about the dimensions of that flying roll in Zechariah chapter 5, verse 2. But in verse 3, the angel is giving you a better understanding of what it is. And that's why I'm saying when we break it down in Hebrew, it's so important to do that in the Hebrew, because we talk about an oath, which is also known as a curse, because that's what it says in English. But it also means something really interesting when you look at it like that. Because again, oath means promise, oath means creed, it means a surety of something being guaranteed. And so what this is ultimately is a being or a vessel that is used to make sure that something happens. You understand? And so that's what it is. It is an oath that is in the air, that is physically there, is manifested to be there as a standing shamar vessel in the army of the Lord. That's exactly what it is. Christ. All right, so continuing here. Allah. All right. Now, again, we're continuing to break down the scripture. It's going to take a little bit of time because I know this is a pretty long scripture, so I'm going to make sure we have some room here. So it says, Haya wa taza'ath. If I can write it. Haya wa taza'ath. Haya wa taza'ath. Oh, yeah. I'm doing this bit by bit. We're not leaving nobody behind or anything like that. Haya wa taza'ath. The root word for this, we're doing this bit by bit. What it's saying is that goes out. So this is an oath that is said. This is an oath that is physical. You understand? That goes out. And that's what this word is right here. H3318 means to go or to come out, to become known, appear. That's heavy. This is known. Means this thing is going to appear. H3318. H3318 means to go, to appear. What else we see here? To become known. This is heavy. So the oath, the surety that this thing does is that it is for sure going to be known. It is for sure going to appear. It is for sure going to go out, meaning nothing's going to stop it from going out. Nothing's going to stop it from being known. There's nothing that's going to stop it from doing what it's supposed to do, because it is literally in itself an oath. You understand? That's what this flying roll is that Zechariah is seeing in the air, and the angel is describing it to him. And so when we bring it to you in the Lashon Kodash, we're doing this so that you can see what it's saying in its ancient language. It's important because we understand it. We read the Bible in English, and half of you fall asleep trying to read it in English. But when you read it in Hebrew, it hits that much harder because you got to analyze every single word and let every word, you got to feel every single word that it says. When it says oath, when it says flying roll or flying scroll, rather, right? H423. You should add this to your vocabulary. If I was you, I would have a part of my notebook dedicated to vocabulary words. That if you have that, then you're definitely on your way to understanding this language. Heck, maybe even better than me someday. Shoot. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm over here teaching. I don't even have time to write notes like this. Let's see. The word here that we wanted to make sure to take note of, H423, is Allah. 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 Not Allah that means power. That's different. That is the lowercase God, right? That's how you would say Allah in ancient Hebrew. This is Allah, which means oath or curse. And that is what the angel is describing this chariot to be. That's not necessary for this class. But this is Allah. H423. Everybody got that? Make sure you notate that. All right. I know I have this sideways as head. I mean, she was barely even reading that. Let me see. 3318. Let me get back to that. Yataza'a. Ya Taza'a. Yataza'a. To go. To become known. To appear. Now, again, the chariots of the Most High do that to this day. Because when you think of a chariot, or when you think of these so-called UFO sightings, what is it that they're doing? They're fulfilling their oath. They're making themselves known. They're making themselves appear. They're going out forward. Where are they going out? Let's get it. I'm about to get that right now. Al Panya Panya Call. Might need to write it a little smaller. Like I said, I gotta make sure I got room for as much of the scripture as I can. You know what I'm saying? It's not easy to do. I want to try to make this as legible as I can because I know, you know, you gotta try to fill up the whole board. You know what I'm saying? So again, we're reading Zechariah chapter 5, verse 3. What is it that the angel calls the chariot that Zechariah sings? He says it's called an oath. Again, ha'alah. H423 means oath or curse, a surety of something. And then this curse is making itself known, making itself appear. And then where is it making itself appear? I'm going to show you. It says it right here in the ancient Hebrew. Al Panya Kal Ha'ratazah. And you know what? I should just go ahead and write that too. Let me write that part up. So, Ha'ratazah. The chariot of the Most High is fulfilling its oath. And what it does is that it is known as a curse. It is known as an oath that goes out, and it says over, that's al, panya, the face, kal, which means of all, and then ha'arataza, root word arataza means earth. But ha, again, is your preposition. Ha means the. So if the root word is arataza, which means earth, then ha'arataza just means the earth. So again, what is it the Most High's chariots are doing? Their job is to go out and make itself known, make itself appear. Again, Ya Taza'ah is what is being used right here in Hayawa Taza'ah. Hayawa Taza'ah. So it's making itself known over the face of all the earth. And to this day, the chariots of the Lord are all over the face of the earth, making itself known. Now, again, this is why I wanted to make sure I had plenty of room for the rest of the scripture, because we've already unveiled some important aspects of this flying roll that is seen in Zechariah chapter 5, verses 1 through 3 so far, right? But not only is it telling us what it looks like, it's telling us what it's going to do, what it's promised to do, what it's created to do. And then, of course, the evidence of it is whether or not this is true, right? And so when we see this across the whole world right now, we know that it's true because it is fulfilling its oath by being seen all over the whole entire world. And it has a certain purpose that the Most High is acquainted for it, has appointed for it for a specific time. So think about this as something that cannot be stopped, something that cannot be prevented. It's something that is holding its post. Just like how we read in the Apocrypha, how the Most High created all the celestial bodies in space to hold their post, to serve their purpose and things like that. That the Most High created this oath to fly over the face of the earth, or this curse, aka flying roll, or what we read in Hebrew, a flying scroll, right? It's going to look something like this. And the scripture in verse 2 that we just read is that the dimensions was 10 cubits in breadth and 20 cubits in its length, right? And so this thing that's flying around, this flying roll, is serving its purpose. That you can understand. But what is its purpose and why is it going over the face of the whole earth? Well, again, we're going to continue to read the scripture and then get a better understanding of this role and its purpose and the oath that it is promised. It says, for every thief, or in Hebrew, kaya, kal, okay, haganah, haganah. If you ever wanted to come up with something that's somewhat derogatory of the oppressor, you could call them haganah. That is completely accurate biblically. Haganah, which means thief. Thief. It says, for every thief. So again, the flying rolls of the Most High's army go over the face of the whole earth. There is nothing that can prevent it from doing its duty. There's nothing that's going to stop it from destroying when it is given the order to destroy. Those of you that have been reading ahead in the scripture that we're in. Let me make sure to put these connectors here for y'all. Again, when you're reading Hebrew, you're going to see more often than not, we use either these connectors to join words together, or these, I guess you could say, these little marks that show that this is a character that's supposed to be pronounced by itself. Okay. So again, let's bring it into Hebrew what we're at so far, because in the English, what is being said is Zechariah chapter 5 and verse 3 says, and he said to me, this is the oath that goes out over the face of all the earth, for every thief. That's what we got so far. Now let's read it in Hebrew. Repeat after me. Waya Amar, Al Ya, Za'af, Ha Allah, Ha Ya Wa Taza'af. I'm gonna try it again. Ha Ya Wa Taza'af, Al Hanya, Kal, Ha Rataza, Kaya. This is actually like this. Kaya, Kal, Hagana, Hagana. Yeah, that's the word. Hagana means thief. Hagana means thief. It's another vocabulary word. I knew it was the root word was gana. Technically, it's saying the thief, but in its translation here in the interlinear version, it says ha gana. So you can get away with just saying ganab. So if you ever see Edomite or somebody, you know what I'm saying, an oppressor, you call them ganab. They don't gonna know what that means, but you know because you hear in this class. Moving on. I'll try this pen. Let's see if this one's any better. Mazak. No, this one's not better. There we go. Mazak. Kamawa. Kamawa. Dang. Nakwa. Here's an interesting one. Nakwa. Nakwa. Wakal. Those of you that are like, man, what the heck is he saying? We're gonna break it down. Don't worry. Wakal. Hana. Hana Shabai is the next word. Hana Shabai. Mazat. Kamawa. Kamawa. And then Nakwa again. That's interesting. We got an officer in our school named Nakwa. That's crazy. Okay. Kamawa. All right. So what we talking about here? What's all this jibber jabber that we seeing? All right. Let's back up. So what we know is that the Most High's chariots are literally an oath. You understand? It's crazy because what's heavy about that is that the Most High gives his orders, his word, and those things get done. It's almost like the chariots of the Most High are an extension of his oath, his word. Does that make sense? So it's like a manifestation of his orders. So this is something that literally can't be stopped because it is a manifestation of God's orders. You understand what I'm saying? And the angel is describing this to Zechariah. And we're breaking it down in Hebrew so that you can understand it better than just measly English, because English is not giving us a good enough example of what it's actually saying. And so when we go into this ancient Hebrew, we translate it to English words, but when we translate it to English words, it may give us an even better, accurate description of what it's saying. And so when it's talking about this oath going over the face of the earth, now we can get it to an understanding of what its purpose is, because this applies to national security on every side of the globe today in 2024. It is an imperative part of understanding the affair of things, the state of affairs in the geopolitical landscape, because you have you have armies that are invading other countries, and you have countries invading countries. You have tensions between countries. You have treaties that are being broken. But all while that is happening, you have orders that are being followed by the Most High. And that's what these are. And going into the breakdown here, it says, for every thief, this side of the scroll. This is literally what it says in the translation. Because the word mazah means this here. You understand? For every thief, this here, it says kamawa, which means according to. The word according to that we see here, kamawa, kamawa, this part right here. This is the root word. It means, according to means when. Spend too much time on that. All right. Next word here is nakwa, which is H5352. That is nakwa. And it means to expel, to be emptied, to be cleaned. It says, let me see, means leave. Okay, purged. That's a good definition right there. Purged. It says, shall be expelled. Now, this is, again, an interesting thing because when we read it in English, you understand? It says in English, I'm going to read the King James Version, Zechariah chapter 5, verse 3. Then he said unto me, this is the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. For everyone that stealeth shall be cut off, as on this side, according to it. And everyone that sweareth shall be cut off, as on that side, according to it. So what does it mean when it's saying this side according to it? It's saying that the scroll is what's doing it. That's why it's saying that cut off on this side according to it. Meaning it's saying cutting off by this scroll, by the flying roll, by the oath that the Most High is putting out over the earth. So it's almost like saying God's army is literally an extension of his order over everything, all of creation, and even all of destruction. Sloppy, give me 1 second. I told you I said the bus was getting a tire changed out or something. We'll go back to the Hebrew here again. So it says, for every thief, this side of the scroll, according to, shall be expelled. Now, the word expelled, nakwa, right? Let me write this down because this is another definition for the day. H5352, nakwa, means to purge, to expel. What does that mean to expel? If any of you have ever been expelled from school, what does that mean? It means you were cut off from school, right? You were kicked out of school. You were separated from school. I can't stress to you anymore. So this oath is going all over the earth, and it is holding shamar in those kingdoms, in those cities, in those countries that belong to thieves. That's the main thing to understand from the scripture. That's why in the English translation, it calls it a curse. Just so happens that the English people would look at it that way because they are ones that are thieves. They're the ones that try to, steal the scriptures and, bend it to their understanding and try to call it something nice for them to take advantage of. And so that's why you got to understand the scriptures in Hebrew, because when we read that it says Naqua, that this is what's going to happen to those countries because of these flying rolls that are in the air. Does that make sense? That's just most high Christ. I love that we can come and learn our language and that we can read it in its original form and get the chance to really dive into the culture of it all. You know what I'm saying? To the pronunciation, the exact the wording and the dialect of the ancient people, because it was very likely that when these things were saying, the angel was saying it in this very same tongue that we're reading right now. That when it was written in this very same characters that you're seeing on the board. It's my terrible handwriting, maybe not be the best representation of it, but everybody's going to have their own style with it. You may have good handwriting. I don't necessarily have good handwriting, but I will say this: these characters are a lot easier to write than English characters. Give me 1 second, y'all. Let me see if I can fix the mic. Moving forward. So it says, again, thief is pronounced ha-ganah. Ha-ganah. That's what you call the oppressive. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know how the Chinese people at the Chinese hair salons and nail salons and all that, they be talking smack in their own language, calling you a gajin and all this crazy stuff. You call them ganah behind their back. You know what I mean? I just gave you a little cuss word. It's not even a cuss word. It's a derogatory thing, because this word means thief. And that's exactly where these oaths are being sent out. The scripture calls it a flying scroll. And so these things are being sent out over the face of the earth, and there's nothing that can prevent it from doing so, because by nature, it is actually God's orders being manifested in real life. And it is a vessel for the beings that he commands to hold shamar inside of those vessels. And that's exactly what they're doing right now to this day over every country that belongs to thieves that have stolen land from wherever the Most High originally set the nations up for them to live on. The Most High divided the nations, each one to their inheritance. And since then, all they've done is conquer each other and take each other's land. And more importantly, take the land from his children, from the children of Israel. So yes, there are thieves all over the globe. And so you see these flying rolls or flying scrolls all over this whole entire earth to this day. And so you know that these scriptures are true, because what it's saying here is actually what we're seeing to this day. You're seeing it on the news. You see it on, YouTube videos and people's blurry phone pictures, cameras, videos, and all that stuff. But one thing that we know for sure, they may not understand exactly what it is, but they know it looks kind of like what these scriptures here are describing. And it's doing exactly what this scripture here says it was going to do. So when you know that those two things are true, then what it's going to do next is also true. And that's what it's going to say. And so when we read on, it says, Wakal said, where's it? Wakal. And every Hana Shabbat. It says perjurer. This is important too. This is H7650. 7650. So we know that this is something that's sent over the world for thieves and for perjurers. And so the word perjurer right here means those that swear, to make a covenant. And this is interesting because we know that there are people that not only have stole the land of the nation of Israel, but they also are perjurers in the sense that they swear to be the people of Israel, the original people in that land, which is crazy. We just read in this issue that's being put in front of people's faces at HEB every single day. Right here, you got ancient Hebrew. Ancient, this Hebrew, not the new Hebrew, but the ancient Hebrew is being put in front of everybody's face. And then when you go into the National Geographic, you see depictions. Look at this. You see depictions of Caucasian people as the people of this land, of the people of the book. And so this scripture here is heavy because it's not only talking about the thieves, it's talking about the people that are swearing falsely by the Most High's name. The scripture refers to them in Revelation as the synagogue of Satan. But this is crazy though, because for them to put this right in front of your face while you barely getting enough, you know what I'm saying, while you barely getting enough food to feed your family for your groceries and you using your WIC cards, and the last thing that you thinking about spending your money on is a geographic book that brings out your actual culture. That's crazy. That's how you know that our oppressor is the thief. Our oppressor is very slick with what he's doing because he gonna put some kind of truth out there. He might even show the Hebrew in your face. Now, because we out here teaching these classes, he's gonna put it in your face, but he's gonna be like, nah, it's ours. That's not yours. What you doing reading that? No, you gotta go to work tomorrow. You can't afford this National Geographic issue. You barely got enough food and food stamps to get the clothes that you came to HEB for. But now you got it. You understand? They putting it right in your face. That's the crazy thing about it. That's why I had to go and get it. I'm like, let me see what they up to. They over there talking about they discovering more scriptures and discovering more scrolls. We got the scroll right here. We don't need AI computers and $1 million laboratories to decipher that because we got the Bible. We can read it right here. And they spend all this money trying to understand the UFO phenomenon in the war zone over Ukraine and the war zone over Jerusalem and Hamas and all that. And we got the answer right here because we actually just reading the scriptures. All this time they want to claim that they're the people of the book. They ain't even open the book and read it, let alone giving the understanding of it. But under Commander General Yohana here at the Isupk, we read these words. We break down the vocabulary of what it is. And it just so happens that it was for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans to understand and not them. And that's why when we read it and we see thief and perjurer and we see them getting destroyed, that's why we can see that as gospel, while the rest of the world thinks that we're madmen because we understand it this way. Because we understand these scriptures are going to be true, they're going to happen, there's nothing that can stop them from happening. So again, perjury, Hana Shabbat. The main word here is Shabbat, which means to swear. This side of it. The devil. You see that, right? That's crazy, yeah. Wow, which means according to. And then Nakwa again means shall be expelled. We also know the word Nakwa to mean purged, which means what? It means these lands are going to be purged from the thief. They're going to be purged from the false swearers. They're going to be purged and expelled. Just like how when you was growing up in school and you was a bad kid in class, they expelled you from school. Well, these people are going to be expelled from wherever they are across the whole four corners of the earth. That's what this scripture is talking about right here. We're going to read it in Hebrew, but before we do, I want to do a quick recap about what this was saying here, because this is all very important. When it says in English, we get it in English, Zechariah chapter 5, verse 3 says that this is a curse. When we go into the Hebrew, when we get the Hebrew translation, it calls it an oath. Oath can mean curse, it means oath, or it also means promise or surety. Meaning what? What is it that the angel is describing to be the oath? He's talking about the flying roll that Zechariah saw in chapter 5, verse 2, the verse above. That flying roll is in itself an oath. It is an order. That's what it is. That's why you can't stop it from doing what it's supposed to do. because it is a manifestation of God's will in the physical form. It is a part of his army. It is an oath, and it goes out over the face of all the earth for every thief this side of the scroll, according to, shall be expelled, meaning it is going to be because of that order, because of that vessel, that those thieves are going to be purged off the face of the earth. And then it says, and every perjurer, or as we know to mean, where's it at? Purge means to swear. For every swearer on this side, according to, shall be expelled. So again, that's heavy right there, because now I get a better understanding of what it's saying. Because it says this oath that goes out, the word right here, hataza'ah, means to become known and to appear. So what is it that these things do? These orders go out and they make themselves known. They make themselves seen. And that's why you have what's called UFO sightings, because they become known over the face of the whole earth. You see them in South America, you see them in North America, you see them in Antarctica, you see them in Jerusalem, you'll see them in, China and Russia, everywhere across the whole earth. So there's no doubt that that is exactly what this scripture is, and there's no doubt that these scriptures are true. And that Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indians are the real Israelites that these scriptures are talking about, because God is coming to save them. Though we have been scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, we are supposed to be saved from our captivity in the midst of these places. You understand? There's more scriptures that we can go over that give a better understanding of that. But I wanted to make sure that we at least have that. So let's go ahead and read it into Hebrew, and then we're going to finish it up here. And y'all can repeat after me. I'm gonna read. We don't try to read at least 2 or 3 times. We want to get it bit by bit. Waya Amar Al Ya Za'at Ha'Allah Hayawatadat Al Panya Kal Ha'aratza Kaya Kal Hagana Mazat Kamawa, Nakwa, Wakal, Hamashabai, Mazat, Kamawa, Nakwa. And what we said was, and he said to me, this is the oath that goes out over the face of all the earth. For every thief this side of the scroll, according to, shall be expelled. And every perjurer this side, according to, shall be expelled. That's the purpose of the UFO. All right, we're going to read that one more time in Hebrew, and then we're going to close it out on that. Again, repeat after me. Waya Amar Al Ya Za'at Allah Hayawat Haza'at Al Panya Kal Ratza Kaya, Kal, Haganah, Mazat, Kamawa, Nakwa, Wakal, Hanashabai, Mazat, Kamawa, Nakwa. That's scripture breakdown, you understand? So again, what our curriculum is going to call for is that every, we'll say maybe third or fourth Friday of each month, we're going to do an actual scripture breakdown. If there's any particular scriptures that you want to be broken down in Hebrew that you find interesting, you can direct message Isupk San Antonio as a request, and then we'll look into it to see if it's a scripture that we can go over in Hebrew. Okay. Aside from that, of course, the first few weeks of each month, we're going to be going more into basic things like numbers, characters within the Hebrew alphabet, some of the basic rules and things like that. We're going to keep it with that kind of type of consistency moving forward. Of course, definitely you can hit up myself, Officer Yalawan Banzabalawan. You can find me on Facebook. Frequently, I'm the one posting classes on all the different groups that you find the Hebrew Israelite, in the Hebrew Israelite groups that are on Facebook. for people to post things, right? So look for me on there too if you have any questions about any specifics when it comes to the ancient Hebrew language, because we're here to answer questions for you. We're here to give you back your heritage. We're here to give you back your strength. If you haven't had the chance to write down what's on the board, now's the last time for you to do so before we call the class today. All right. But we'll leave this on here for the next class so we can recap on this when we get started next week before we go back into the basic stuff. So with that, we'll go ahead and end it on that. But we're not quite done tonight because we're going to be doing our Sabbath service here shortly at Isupk San Antonio. So if you are not following us, or if you're not subscribed to us, make sure to subscribe to us on social media. You can find us Isupk San Antonio on Facebook, YouTube, like as you're on right now, or Isupk_SATX on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, so on and so forth. You can find us on there too. All right, so make sure to tune into our Sabbath service coming up because we got some heavy information going over on that as well. All right, with that, Shalom. Yahweh Hashem Yahushua Barakatah to all the brothers. Yahweh Shema Adon Hashem Yahushua to all the sisters. And Shalom. Yeah.